How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and time for another combo review. And boy oh boy, is this one uplifting. I'm kidding. It's really not. Now later on I will be discussing my thoughts on the new moving and searing drama starring Hugh Jackman as a parent struggling to come to terms with his son's declining mental health in the sun. But first up is the newest film from Darren Aronofsky, starring Brendan Fraser as a man suffering with severe obesity who is slowly dying, but yet he wants to put right some of the wrongs in his life before he goes in The Whale.
The point of this course is to learn how to write clearly and persuasively. Think about that. Think about the truth of your argument. You're an amazing person, Ellie. I couldn't ask for a more incredible daughter.
Are you actually trying to parent me right now?
Who would want me to be a part of their life?
I did warn you that this wasn't exactly going to be the cheeriest video in the world. I'm sorry. Brendan Fraser stars as Charlie, an online college lecturer who, following the death of his partner, has resorted to eating ludicrous amounts and living in squalor. To put it bluntly, Charlie has given up on life, and as we meet him, is edging closer and closer to death. His carer helps him out as best as she can, but even she acknowledges that he is beyond help. However, for Charlie, all of this doesn't stop him trying to help others, particularly his estranged daughter, who is having struggles of her own. To pardon the pun, this is one heavy film. It's based on the play of the same name written by Samuel D. Hunter, who also writes the screenplay for this. It's entirely situated within the confines of Charlie's dreary apartment, and all he ever does during the day is sitting on the sofa, or if he can, be going around the house to go to bed, or to find whatever food could be lying around the house. Darren Aronofsky's direction is much more reserved than we've seen from him in the past. This is definitely his most understated film. That being said, my God, does he know how to craft some really disturbing sequences. For instance, there are moments where we see Charlie consuming dangerous amounts of food, and it is highly distressing to watch, not just because it's not particularly pleasant watching someone scoff down pizzas or chocolate bars or sub rolls. It's the fact that we are basically just watching a very long and drawn out suicide attempt. Now, the film choosing to stay in the same location for the entire time is obviously a decision that is influenced by the play, and it's fine. It helps develop a sense of claustrophobia, Charlie's inability to escape his own problems, but at the same time, it does feel a little constrained. There are times where I would have liked it to branch out and use the cinematic art form a little more, whereas I don't think that was explored as much as it possibly could have been. Now, that being said, Darren Aronofsky does what he tends to do in a lot of his films, and that is elicit tremendous performances from his entire cast. Ty Simpkins and Samantha Morton did well in their respective supporting roles. Hong Chow was brilliant as Charlie's caregiver. Now, she has her own reason for being in Charlie's life, and Chow does a remarkable job at peeling that away bit by bit. As for Sadie Sink, I thought she was terrific in what is absolutely her most mature and layered role to date. However, I had a real issue with her character specifically. She's impossible to care for, and I get that that's somewhat the point, but in turn that adds significant roadblocks to Charlie's mission to get her to see the hope and the possibilities that life has in store. She's just a really horrible person. Now, towards the end of the film, there is an attempt to provide that development, but because it happens right at the last minute, it doesn't necessarily feel earned. But of course, the talking point of this film, and deservedly so, is Brendan Fraser. Fraser is giving the performance of his life in this film. He masterfully ebbs and flows between a really quite reserved, shy character to then these emotional outbursts as he's fully aware of the situation that he is in, but not wanting that to dampen any of the lives around him. A lot of his mannerisms just totally break your heart because you are entirely aware that he is aware that he is just a man that is trapped within this decaying husk of a body, and he's fine with that. Honestly, I think it's a two-horse race for the Oscar between Fraser and Austin Butler for Elvis. I can't currently call it, but even if his name isn't read out in a couple of weeks in March, it doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world, because seeing this ascension and rise back to the top of the mountain from Fraser is, I think, all any fans of his could ever ask for. The Whale will likely leave you emotionally devastated and blown away by the tremendous Brendan Fraser and the rest of the cast. Aronofsky clearly put emotion before anything for this project, in what is perhaps his quietest film to date. Admittedly, some of the themes discussed weren't handled in quite the right way, and the surplus of unlikable characters did hinder a lot of the film's emotional impact. But taking that into consideration, it's a brilliant exercise of an intense character study combined with a masterclass in acting led by Brendan Fraser. And yeah, bring some tissues, but don't bring snacks. If you're able to eat a morsel when watching this film, you are undoubtedly a monster of a human being. I'm going to give The Whale an 8.5 out of 10. And so from one emotionally devastating film to another, as Hugh Jackman stars in a very sensitive film about a family on the brink of tragedy in The Sun.
Nicholas hasn't been to school in almost a month.
I wanted to ask, how are you? Has something happened? You realize the school is talking about expelling you.
Hugh Jackman leads a talented ensemble as a successful attorney. But whilst all seems right as rain on the surface, his family couldn't be in more jeopardy. His separation with his ex has caused devastating ripples for his son, Nicholas, and taken a critical toll on Nicholas's mental health. So as Nicholas starts self-harming and battling suicidal thoughts, Jackman's character is left to do whatever he can to cling on to his son. Florian Zeller directs while Christopher Hampton returns to pen the screenplay. The two last paired up with The Father, which proved to be quite the smash hit for them. And boy, they really get a kick of putting audiences through the ringer, don't they? The Sun is a monumentally challenging film to experience, and I think it's one that will divide a lot of the audience as it has the critics. I'm going to start off with my negatives, and there's very little subtlety or nuance to this film. You are constantly aware of how each character is feeling all of the time. There's no subtext, or if there is, it's not very well hidden, because the characters are either telling you how they feel the entire time, or it is just plastered on the wall for all to see. And that also speaks to a larger issue that I had with the film to do, especially with its first act. It's very ropey. And worst of all, due to the fact that the characters are seriously one-dimensional to start with, it leaves the film coming off very artificial, which is probably not the intention, at least I would hope. Luckily, I think that issue got resolved towards the second act. It managed to get itself out of that ditch, and as it neared into the third act, that's when gradually it began to sink its claws into me. I also wasn't won over by Vanessa Kirby's performance. I think it's to do with particularly the way that she's written. Her character comes off very cold a lot of the time, and at least in my eyes, a lot of her behaviors and just general attitude towards this larger situation just felt very unreasonable. On the flip side of that, when it comes to performances, Hugh Jackman is exceptional. The story is predominantly told through his eyes, and I thought that he does a brilliant job at displaying the anger, confusion, and fear a parent would likely experience in this type of situation. In another year, perhaps he might have snagged an Oscar nomination, but I think in this current pool of actors, I think it's only fair that he was probably like the 6th best lead actor of this year. As for Zen McGrath, now it's a tall task for a relative newcomer to take on such a complex role, and at points with certain line deliveries and emotional outbursts, he can be rather flat. That being said, there are certain aspects towards his depiction of depression which I thought he got spot on, particularly with the manipulation that can often come from depression. Now, it's a topic that is very, very rarely discussed within Hollywood, but also amongst people who have suffered with depression or are currently suffering. Now, I do want to stress this. Please, this movie is very heavy going. It doesn't hold anything back. And primarily is there to discomfort you. There are 2 scenes in particular that immediately come to my mind, and that is because they're probably like 2 of the most traumatic sequences that I've seen in a long, long time. One of them in particular, it made me feel physically sick. I'm still yet to determine if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just really hit me in a manner that I wasn't prepared for. And I went into this film knowing what it was about and what it was going to discuss. And it still knocked me on my ass. The ending in particular, I think, will split a lot of the audience. And I think that's okay. I do personally think that there should be a larger dialogue about how mental health is depicted in film and TV, because it's often treated as either something trivial or is seen as this incurable disease. There's very rarely any middle ground. So I think a dialogue such as this is good. It helps gauge that it isn't one or the other, it's a spectrum. On the whole, The Son deeply affected me, but not before a bit of a rocky start in the first act. Jackman is incredible as always, and despite a couple of missteps here or there, I do think that Zeller remains a captivating storyteller. By the end, I was left considerably emotionally drained. Now, is it a film I can wholeheartedly recommend? I honestly don't know. And as cliched as this may sound, I think it's just going to be down to the individual. But if the intention was to devastate, well then consider me seriously rattled. I'm going to give The Son an 8 out of 10. Anyway, guys, those were my thoughts on The Whale and The Son. Let me know, have you had a chance to see either of these films yet? What did you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Now, I'm not going to ask you a question today. Instead, I'm just going to let you guys know that I'm including a link in the description of this video to the Samaritans. I know a lot of what I have discussed for both of these films could be incredibly triggering to some people. I just hope that there are people who are either in a situation such as these, or even different to these, and are struggling. Or even if you know of someone and you yourself are struggling about that. The Samaritans are a fantastic charity, a fantastic organization who are there just to listen and provide support. So I'll include a link below. You do with that link what you want to do. It's not my place. But if you're struggling, just know that people will be there to help you. Even if it feels like they won't, they will. But that's all we have time for here today. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Hello, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, make sure to click that like button, and if you aren't already, click that subscribe button too.